Wordle is dead.
What? Well, hang on. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I also would like to hear your rationale.
Well, okay. This has nothing to do with the New York Times things. Like I'm glad that the Wordle guy got paid, and like I think that's cool. Good for him. He made something that made a lot of people happy, and now New York Times is going to monetize it somehow. I don't care. I already pay for this. We've already talked about this. Here's the why it's dead though. This morning I learned about Quordle.
Could you repeat that? Could you spell that?
QUORDLE.com. What if instead of solving one Wordle at one time, you solved 4 Wordles with the same hints and same clues?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like meta Wordle.
Okay, I'm clicking daily Quordle.
You shouldn't do it live.
Yeah. I'm just closing this tab right now.
It's too many squares. It's a lot of squares.
Let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's 12 across. And it's literally just 4 Wordles.
There's I think 8 hints instead of 6.
Yes, you get more guesses than Wordle. It looks like.
But here's the thing: it's basically the same as when we went from standard def TV to HD TV. This is HD Wordle.
You literally could make one of those screen diagrams where you fit one Wordle.
Yeah,
like 20 times into, well, not 20, but like quite a few times into this giant grid. This is too much.
I mean, plus 25% or whatever, 20, I don't know, the 33%. But
I'm closing this.
Look, I'm going to go and tell you, I don't know if it's good or not, but I've been playing them, and they give you as many as you want. It's not just one a day.
Ooh.
So you can get as many Quordles, QUORDLE.coms as you want.
Is it time to come up with a name for this genre? Because the proliferation of not Wordle clones, because clone implies they're just doing the same thing, but kind of more Wordle spin-offs, I would say. Like I have found yesterday I came across one that is a geography Wordle.
That one's pretty good.
Wordle.
Yeah, Wordle. I like that one. It was hard.
Oh gosh, what was the other one I saw yesterday?
There's Gary Whitta's Loodle, which is all naughty words. Don't go there. It's not safe for people. Eyes especially.
Gosh, what was the other one
There's
I saw?
Poddle, which is somebody made with words that we use in the tech pod, apparently.
Yes, I saw that. That was a good piece of work. There's one like this is a little further afield of the concept. It's not word based and it's not even the same kind of format, but it's a daily history quiz.
Ooh.
It presents you with, I wish I had made a note of the name. I cannot remember it. It literally randomly spits out historical events and you drag them onto a timeline in the order that you think they occurred. And you keep going. I think you get 3 misses and you just keep going until you run out of guesses. And
so
then,
some of these,
and they score you. It's awesome. It's really cool. And like the general idea is like people are just taking data sets and turning them into games. And it's kind of awesome.
That one, like that one and the geography one, both seem designed to make Americans feel inadequate and bad.
That's fair.
But like, I don't know. Maybe this is the year of the grid. Is that where we're at?
The year of the grid. I'm kind of into that. Yeah. Also, the other thing, I mean, I get why you said Wordle is dead.
I just said Wordle is dead as a good intro for the episode. I actually still play Wordle every day, and I love Wordle despite the New York Times business. People can get upset about that, but that's fine. I haven't unpacked this. I don't fully understand this myself. I don't begrudge that dude getting paid at all or any of that situation. Yeah.
I also have not played Wordle since the day they announced they were buying it. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know why somehow in my mind it's over, but it kind of is.
It must have been love, Brad, but it's over now.
I guess so.
Look, once bitten, twice shy. I don't know. I'm just keep getting 80s lyrics out here until we get one that works.
Just keep spewing out. Welcome to the jungle of the random podcast topics that we are about to talk about as the show starts right now.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I am Brad. Hi.
Brad, it's my favorite kind of episode.
Oh?
Well, okay.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Can I take a sniff? What's that I smell? Is that lavender?
It's a hint of lavender, maybe a little bit of apple, cinnamony apple.
Apple peel, cinnamon,
yeah.
For some chamomile, perhaps.
Yep.
Peppermint extract?
A delicious sachet, perhaps.
Some vanilla.
It's a potpourri episode, Brad.
It is a potpourri episode because we've got, hang on, I'm going to count the bullet points here. 1, 2, 3, 4, Okay, currently we have 6 bullet points of things we would like to talk about, none of which are likely to fill a whole episode. So
yeah. So if you're new, every once in a while we get to a point where we have on our idea list a bunch of stuff that we think is worth talking about, but is not, as you said, worthy of a full 45-minute to hour-long episode. And here we are. First off, a bunch of people sent me lovely messages on Twitter and on the Discord, hoping that I get well after I posted that I had surgery last week. My gallbladder has been successfully removed. Nice job, UCSF outpatient surgical team.
Has it only been a week?
It has been 7-8 days as of right now.
God, you're right. It feels like a month ago.
It was kind of, we launched a podcast last week too.
Hours before you had to go under the knife.
Yeah, and then we promoted it. We waited to promote it. It was good. It was a good idea to not promote it until Sunday, just for the record.
Okay.
But yeah, like I hadn't had, the last time I had surgery, I was in the hospital for a few days afterwards because I had my appendix out, and that's a little bit more of an inpatient thing.
Is that, first of all, that's interesting to hear for me, because in my mind, they're both just kind of similar abdominal procedures where something comes out. So I don't know why one is. Well, although, I assume the appendix is more of an emergency situation, right? Like that's an unexpected, like this has to be dealt with now kind of thing.
Yeah, but like the appendix is a useless thing that you don't do anything with, and the gallbladder is an important part of your digestive tract. You'd think you'd stay in longer for the important thing than the stupid thing that should have gone away. But here we are.
What if maybe everybody should just have the appendix out electively?
Look, I got so often if they do gallbladder and you still have your appendix, they'll go ahead and take it out while they're in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they close together?
Look, man, I'm not a geographer.
Ask you anything. Yes.
So I did learn a couple of interesting things. One is that I got a laugh from the OR team as I was getting strapped onto the table, because the last thing I said as they were getting ready to put me under when the oxygen mask was on my face was, "Hey, we're all here for a gallbladder, right?"
You're still completely coherent at this point, right? Or had they already administered the anesthesia?
Look, they gave me the good business when I was getting rolled from the pre-op room into the OR.
Oh, really? Before you got into the OR?
Yeah, well, they want you relaxed, right? People get anxious.
I didn't get it. Like I was fully awake, and when there were 8 people buzzing around me in the OR, and I was still fully there, and then all of a sudden I wasn't.
Oh, see, as I was being wheeled into the OR, like as the doors were opening, I was going in. I literally remember thinking, wow, my chest is tingling. If they haven't given me the good stuff already, I should probably tell them, because that seems like it might be a bad thing. And then they were like, hey, are you still able to get up onto the bed? I was like, the table. And I was like, yeah, I can do it. And they were like, wait, let's lock the wheels in place first. And then I got the gallbladder laugh, because I was like, oh, man, I don't want to be in the leg room by accident. That would be bad. But that surgery, apparently they strap you to the table and then they do it vertically.
What?
Yeah.
Like some kind of literal Frankenstein's monster kind of situation.
I assume they want orientation or something for like the organs or whatever. I don't know.
I wonder if gravity plays a part.
Somehow. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That I didn't actually confirm that. Somebody told me that afterwards. I was like, that sounds right. I don't know. I was asleep. I woke up, recovered nicely. Didn't even need narcotic. Like the pain for the surgery was way less than the pain from the thing that made me have the surgery. Wow. And
that's a plus.
Yeah, it was really nice.
I mean, my general understanding is that laparoscopic procedures are like wildly advanced today compared to where they were like 20 years ago. Like how big is your incision?
I have 4 incisions ranging from like 1.5 inches to like 1/4 of an inch, probably. Like some of them they just use to inflate you. Like they deflated my stomach. I went and read the post-op notes, because you can do that now.
Never want to do that.
And it's like they deflate your stomach and inflate your abdominal cavity and do all sorts of other stuff. But then they stitched me up and then glued the skin closed on top of the stitches. And this glue just kind of flakes off over a period of weeks, and then it's all better. And there's no, like I could see the incisions, so there's no like dressings to open and change or anything like that. It's all just sealed up and sterile from inside the operating room, presumably. So
I want to mention that prior to this recording, you started to stand up on this video call and pull your shirt up.
I was just looking. I was just checking.
I'll take your word for it.
Look, I have pictures. I can send them. I did have some really gnarly bruises around the bigger incisions over the days afterwards, but minor.
The kind of medical glue, like second skin, like Techoderm, all that type of stuff just fascinates me these days. Like it feels like future Star Trek medical tech, that they're not using metal staples anymore. They're just like, here's some kind of space age polymer that we are spreading on your thing, and it's going to get better, and then it's just going to vanish.
Probably made of corn.
Maybe. Hopefully.
This glue feels almost like it's a weird texture on the glue. It doesn't feel like it feels kind of like rubber cement without the tacky surface, if that makes sense.
Do you have to keep it dry? Can you?
No, I had to stay out of the shower for 3 days. I'm not allowed to submerge myself for a couple of weeks still.
Okay.
Because like you don't look. The thought as I was in the shower the first time, like 3 days after the surgery, I was like, man, I don't want water to go in any places it's not supposed. Like, I don't want to leak the wrong way. That seems like blood coming out doesn't seem that bad, but water going in seems real bad.
Especially like not sterile shower water, like maybe distilled water would be okay. But yeah.
Nope. I don't want anything going in that's not supposed to go in.
I have kind of a similar situation with mine. So first of all, when I had the sinus surgery a couple of years ago, they also did not really suture internally and there was no gauze. Like they didn't. Other people I know that have had the same procedure have like the full on like gauze packed up their nose for 3 days afterwards.
Horrible.
My surgeon was just like, I think it promotes healing better if we don't close it all up. So we just leave it open. And so like,
did that hurt like hell, or did it get like all scabby and gross in there and you were like blowing scabs out?
You do not want to know. Okay. You genuinely do not want to know what was coming out of my nose for about 2 weeks. Like it was, I will never forget, but I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you. I mean, I will say, like, so he used. I don't remember what the substance was, but it was some kind of glue or disposable, dissolvable sort of
something that breaks down over time,
gluey suture. Which it was nice that I didn't have to go back and have anything out or whatever. But the downside of that is that every time I showered for about the first 2 weeks, have you ever seen? Do you remember that Andrew WK album cover?
Well, I mean, several of them.
The one. It's like his first one, I think, where it's just like a big close up of his face with like blood pouring down his. I looked like that after every shower.
That sounds bad.
2 weeks. I'm sorry. This is
wow. So body horror, it starts early on the potpourri episode. We eased him in with talks of lavender and apple peel, then we're like, bam, here's the body horror.
You got to shock him into submission.
So let's see. I've got to get the bile ducts done out next week, but after that, I'm done.
Or
week after next, I guess.
Is that another incision?
No, that's just straight down the old gullet.
Ew.
Arthroscope.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then I don't know if you want to get into this or not, but like, are there like dramatic lifestyle changes that go along with not having a gallbladder?
Some people have problems eating fatty food, like fried stuff. I don't. I guess I eat kind of a lot of French fries, like most Americans, I think, but like I don't eat a lot of fried stuff outside of that, really. So it hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
I did have a sausage biscuit the other day that had an impact that was unusual and novel.
So time will tell.
That's supposed to recede over time.
Okay. So by the time the end of the year rolls around, we'll see what your nog capacity might be.
Yeah, my guess is that my nog is going to go from a single old fashioned to like a shot glass situation from here on out.
Okay, well,
but I had some ice cream the other day, and that was delicious. So, what? Let's see.
Glad you're on the mend.
Thank you. I feel better. I wouldn't encourage people to do this if they can avoid it, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. So there you go.
Couldn't avoid it though, right? Like that's where it was necessary. Like I had a similar situation where I put off my sinus issue for years, like getting it looked at until it became like literally kind of debilitating.
Yeah.
But like once you get to that point, like you were in, I don't know if agony is the word you would use, but like you were clearly not having a good time.
I mean, the big takeaway for me for this whole thing was like pain is an important signal, and just because it's not so bad that you can't take it, that just means you probably have a high pain threshold, and not that you shouldn't go to the emergency room.
Right.
Like I tried to treat this by going to primary care and urgent care and stuff like that, and then that was, in retrospect, probably a mistake. So yeah.
Well, I was in a similar situation where there were frequently times where I could not breathe through my nose at all. Like the obstruction was 100%. Like
that seems bad.
And like what that was doing to my sleep, and like I was getting sinus infections about once a month, and it was just. But the reason I bring that up is that like it's almost like flipping a switch after the procedure is over, right? It's like, oh my God, like this thing that was like, I don't want to say ruining my life, but it was having a severe impact is just gone now.
Yeah.
It's like magically in the space of a few hours, like this thing that was dominating my thoughts is just no longer a thing. And like, that's just, it's the best feeling.
It's a
nice reward after all of the hassle of going through a procedure.
I mean, this started for me around Thanksgiving, and like just conceptually having a thing that causes intense abdominal pain every time you ate too much fat in a meal, like more than 5 or 6 grams of fat, it turns out. Strong motivator to adjust your diet in a way that has been really positive for me. So I feel better, and like, it's good.
That's another plus.
Yeah. What should we hit first? You want to talk about, let's see, people had asked some questions last week about our podcast workflow, especially given we handled this podcast and the FOSPod a little bit differently. The FOSPod's a little bit more produced.
Yeah. Quite a bit of editing went into that first episode.
Yeah, but both because it's interview episodes on the Tech Pod always involve more editing too, just because it's when you're talking to people who aren't like Brad and I have a pretty good rhythm at this point from doing 150 episodes or whatever between this and Tech Pod and Bombcast and all that together over the years.
Yeah.
But there's we also wanted to make something that was more accessible to an audience that maybe doesn't know us with the FOSPod, since Google's going to help promote it, and hopefully it'll get a broader audience, even though it's a little more of a niche topic.
Yes.
But I bring this up because we haven't talked about the podcast workflow in a long time, and also you have got to replace your damn microphone.
That's kind of the real reason to talk about this, but I guess. Yes. I don't even know if we want to get into software stuff too much. I mean, are you recording in Audacity? I am. I started using Audacity like 8 years ago at this point, and like I just know it inside and out enough at this point that like I can't bring myself to learn another workflow in something like Audition.
So the only reason, I record Audacity because the timings stay closest when we use the same application.
Interesting. Yeah, but that is one of the most arcane arts about recording remotely on separate computers, is the like very nondescript kind of drift that can happen on like what the timings of your CPU and like whatever audio library the thing you're recording in is using, and blah blah blah.
What crystal timing clock is on your motherboard? Like right. There's all sorts of stuff. It like in a perfect world, since I use a real audio interface that has an ASIO interface, I should probably be using Audition since it supports ASIO, and Audacity doesn't. Like, that gives you more precise timing and less drift over the course of the recording.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Then maybe I need to change, but
I was gonna say it's weird because I've always used Audition to edit stuff, just because I'm much more comfortable with the non-destructive editor. You can. So basically, so the difference is when you make a cut in Audition, it's just putting a marker. Like it doesn't adjust the source file at all. It just says, hey, take the segment from this time to this time and put it here. And then if you want to stretch the beginning or end of that, then you can. It's still there. With Audacity, that's not an option. Once you do the cut, then the you can't drag back into the what was the source file anymore.
You mean like once you delete a clip?
Well, or once you make a cut and then place the edge of that cut, then that's gone. Yeah. It's easier to make mistakes that have lasting consequences and require you to roll back a lot of work in Audacity. I find.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm sitting here trying to envision if there's a way to replicate what you're talking about. I haven't edited in Audacity another problem here is they both start with the same syllable.
The same word. Yeah. It's really annoying.
I have not edited in Audition, so I can't say for sure, but like there is possible that Audacity might have something like that. I mean, you can certainly just, instead of deleting clips, just drag them off into a muted track elsewhere, but that's kind of messy.
Yeah. So that's the thing that you get with Audacity is you can put stuff in buckets and then say, okay, this is the bucket that's this part of the conversation. This is the bucket that's this part of the conversation. And then you can layer 35 tracks. Yeah. And apply all the filters and stuff like that. So our workflow is we record in Audacity. Mm-hmm. Then I take both of the files that result, or all three of the files if we have a guest, and I sync them up using Audition because it's easier to do the time sync in Audition.
So yeah, like I don't know if I think we've talked about this off mic a little bit, but like, does it have specific tools that make syncing? Like if there's drift, does it actually have ways to compensate for that are kind of built in?
So there's always drift is the first part. There's always at least a couple hundred milliseconds of drift. Maybe like for you and me, it's usually a little like around 50. But if we have a guest that's using like a different USB mic or something weird, then they can have 150 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds easy. Yeah. The neat thing about Audacity is you can line up the bars. You line up, we have the beeps on one side from Thrist Heart's time.is beeping syncing app. Mm-hmm. I line up the start of the recording on all three machines, on all three tracks. And then I go there and I go to the other end and you can literally place a marker on the one that you want to sync with and drag the other ones until the beeps precisely line up. And I can get down to like sample size for the beeps. So I can get a really precise sync. And then I have like filters like noise gates and compression and stuff like that audio like signal compression, not file compression. That ends up on the individual tracks, and usually I level them, but sometimes I forget to do that. It turns out,
right? So
and then they go to you.
Yes, so you essentially sync everything up and do the leveling and mastering. Is mastering an appropriate term for what you're?
It's kind of first pass, right? It's like giving you clean. Like my goal out of that is to give you clean audio that then, because you run it through Levelator at the end, which does the real kind of audio signal mastering so that everything's the right volume and stuff.
It actually just occurred to me that if you look at the waveform after it's gone through Levelator, I think audio engineers might correct me, but I think it's the loudness wars problem from 90s CD mastering. You know what I'm talking about? Where like they just brought everything up to the same ridiculous volume.
Well, you're using the entire, like you use the entire available range of volume.
Right.
And
with voice, that's probably appropriate. Like you want everybody to sound about the same loudness, the same intensity, but it was the same thing that made people complain about CD mastering in the 90s with having no dynamics to the highs and lows.
It's why like some stuff sounds really nice on vinyl.
Sure.
If it's mastered appropriately. Yeah. Anyway.
So yes, where were we? I lost my train of thought.
So I hand off I also chunk up, if we have segments, I chunk up the segments and I will split out the intro and the main body and the outro. And if there's like places where we have over talking or big segments that need to be chopped out, like if somebody has to get up and go to the bathroom or take a call or something, then I'll chop that out and rejoin them seamlessly, because it's really easy to do that in Audition because of the way the track stuff works.
Yes. So you export clean audio to me, which before we get to that is now a good time to ask you to adjust your export settings again, because they've somehow gotten set back to 32-bit again.
Oh, you told me that was fine when I did it when we got to it last time.
But I down convert them before. So
yeah, just let me know what to do and I'll change it.
So I archive the Audacity project for every episode we ever do. Like just out of paranoia, I was like, kind of be nice to have the raw export capability for any, like just, for that day in the future when we start posting all of these things as FLACs, right? Like that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Definitely going to. Okay. But anyway, like the point is the size of the resulting Audacity project is entirely based on the source files you feed into it.
Got it.
And so 32-bit files are dramatically bigger than 16-bit WAV files. So I can just down convert them before I create the project.
I think I have control over that. I'll have to look.
You do. You've done it before. I think it just got changed back somehow.
What happens is every year Adobe gives you new versions of all of their software, and it almost always fucks up some setting or another. So
I bet that's what happened. It's totally fine. Like, I mean, if anything, like it lets me use my newfound PowerShell stuff. Like it's a one-liner in PowerShell to just spit everything back out at the size I want. But
better to not just create it in the like we're recording 24-bit, so there's no reason to give you 32-bit, because I'm giving you individual tracks. Like 32-bit is just is just padding out the files.
Like I'm exporting at 48 kilohertz 16-bit anyway, and then that goes to MP3, so it doesn't.
What an incredible reduction in quality people are getting.
Much bigger.
Brad, I can't believe it.
Much bigger source files. Actually, that came up on the Discord a while back. So we export here on Nextlander, like kind of across the board at 128 kilobits MP3, and there was some thought on the Discord that might be excessive, which I don't.
It probably is, since we're mono.
Yeah, I don't entirely disagree, but also like storage is so ubiquitous and large at this point.
I think we do that because our host for the podcast, actually, that's the maximum they support, and they don't charge us more for transferring.
Yes, that's a big part of it. Anyway, so yeah,
and also since that MP3 file gets converted for Spotify and Stitcher and the other places that it shows up that they do the conversion and hosting, having the higher quality for them makes the podcast there sound less like it gives you less double lossless conversion problems. Anyway, I don't know. We can turn it down if our podcast is taking up too much space. We can turn it down. I don't care.
I think it's fine. I mean, they're not wrong, but also, Yeah. Anyway, you hand me off those source files. I pull those into an Audacity project and kind of do all the kind of heavy cutting of moving intros around and like lay music in and do the ducking on that. And I usually do a polish pass to go through and look for egregious talkover parts and stuff like that, and like try to clean and tighten stuff up a bit.
But we don't do too much on the Tech Pod.
No, like when we started doing this podcast, the first few episodes, I was like obsessively cutting out every and and like massaging it.
Fool's errand. That's a fool's errand, Brad.
I was like polishing it to a mirror sheen, and that was taking like upwards of 3 hours plus an episode just for that part of the process, and it was a lot on the weekends. So, the kind of one of the production tricks you can employ is that the cleaner your conversation is up front, the less it takes to make it sound better on the back end. So we've tried to get better at just talking.
It turns out you can get better at just talking. Yeah. Okay, but let's look. So far you've successfully avoided the real problem here, which is that your Yeti, which has served you long and is a good microphone, and I know you love it, and you have a deep, meaningful relationship with it.
I don't love it. I honestly don't. Like, it's not. I don't care about it. It's just what I've got.
It's time.
Yes, I agree.
It's time to ditch the USB mic and get a real interface.
Remember, was it about 6 months ago, maybe? That we talked about? Okay, look. I am a little bit of a paranoid person, but I also just think it's a best practice not to leave microphones and cameras plugged in when you're not using.
Look, I have Google Homes in the house, so I'm not going to engage with this conversation at all because I can't meaningfully contribute to it.
Look, I'm taking an ideological stand here.
Yes, I appreciate that, but I also like to be able to say, "Hey, turn on the light," and the light turns on. So
I get it. There is no Hey Siri in this house. Anyway, like we talked about this a few months ago that I would unplug the.
Wait, you have it turned off on your phone too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, continue.
What?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just gonna move on.
On top of the privacy stuff, I assume it is saving an infinitesimal amount of battery life by having it off.
On your iPhone 8, it probably is.
Yes.
On stuff with U1s, it probably doesn't matter. Anyway,
I said this a while back that I would make sure the Yeti was off by pulling the what is it? It's a USB Mini A.
Have you been unplugging and plugging it this whole time?
Yeah, we talked about this. And
I told you not to do it. I said it was going to kill the USB port. Brad, what's happened to your Yeti? What's wrong with it?
This is when you introduced me to the phrase duty cycle.
Yes.
I may have run out of duty cycles.
You can always unplug the other end. You plug the end on the hub because that one's rated for way more. We talked about this.
Yeah, you're probably right. So it's getting a little loose. The connection, it's been acting a little weird at times. The other day, it was sort of recognizing and disconnecting in Windows over and over, and moving it to a different port on the machine, on the PC, actually fixed that. So I don't know quite what was going on there, but I'm going to mess up the recording.
I would not touch it if I were you. You're in the danger zone.
But I've had the cable just sort of fall out of the port a couple times as I move the mic around, which can't be good.
No, that's bad.
So it's time, as you said.
Oh boy.
To solder on a new USB port.
Nope, that is not the right answer to this solution, this problem.
I am joking, except I am. Listen, okay. Look. I am joking. I am going to get an audio interface and an XLR mic, but
yes.
Also,
okay.
Could I solder on a new USB port?
If you're going to solder on a new USB port, you want to get a USB reflow station, a cheap reflow station, because desoldering that with a wick and a solder sucker will make you absolutely crazy. Because I'm sure that board
is tiny. I'm sure.
No, it's not even that it's tiny. It's that it's going to be 4 pins. I think maybe 5.
Yeah, I think it's 5
because it's 4 data pins and a ground, maybe, or 2 grounds and 3 data.
It'll be a 5 volt and a ground, and then whatever.
A data and another ground, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, the upshot is provisionally, yes, you can do that. You need to get the right pin out on the USB port that matches the board, which I think is fairly standard. I've never done a USB A like host side one before. I've done USB mini and micro host sides, and those are sadly not. I think they weren't interchangeable. I think I wanted to change something that was mini to a micro, and the pinout on the board wasn't the same, so then I had to do a bunch of weird shenaniganry to make it work.
Interesting.
But okay. Yeah, so you got to match the port with the board. If you go to like iFixit and you search for USB replacement for the device that you have, for the Yeti in this case, because you're going to take this so you have like a travel mic is the idea,
this
right?
is literally, yes, yeah. This is literally just, hey, it's still a good mic other than the port, and I need a travel microphone. And this is, it's compact enough for that. So I just, this is a podcast where we just had Kyle Wiens of iFixit on a few months ago. Like, of course I want to try to make this thing work.
So the thing I will say, sometimes the right thing to do is to fix things for things that are business critical. Related and critical.
Yeah.
I tend to buy depth too.
Yeah. You're right.
And you're basically what you're telling me is you've gone from having a fairly reliable USB microphone to a completely unreliable USB microphone. And thus, I'm going to go to Amazon and order you a new microphone and an interface when we get off this podcast.
Okay, it's maybe not quite as dire as it sounds like. It's not like...
How many times is the USB port? How many times has your USB port fallen out of the microphone?
Twice.
Yeah, that's
twice in like a month.
Look, there's like, okay, if we weren't in the middle of the pandemic and there weren't supply chain issues, I would say yes, you're fine because you can always order something that'll be here the next day on Amazon.
Mm.
You can't rely on that to happen right now.
No. Currently, my fallback is to plug the like the headset microphone back into this pair of Astor A40s I'm wearing.
Nope. That's not going to.
It's not great. It's not great. Like it is workable barely. I would not call it podcast quality.
That is not an acceptable level of microphone from where I sit.
Okay,
anyway.
Well, we've buried the true lead here, which like this is maybe more of a conversation for the Discord. Ed, if you're listening,
yes.
I will be calling on you. I was going to go into the kind of audio video internet broadcasting channel and solicit opinions there, but like, yeah, I will get an XLR mic and an audio interface, and it sounds like the audio interface conversation starts and stops with a Motu M2 at this point.
So I have, over the last 5 years or 6 years since we were doing Foo stuff, I've used Focusrite, I've used Teak, I've used the M Audio, I've used all of the entry level / inexpensive 2 to 4 port audio interfaces on the market, I think, that are like less than $500. The Focusrites are great if you're using Mac, but if you're on Windows, the drivers are real bad.
Yeah, I've still got the Focusrite you let me borrow ages ago, and I ended up uninstalling all the software and drivers in Windows because it was garbage.
It is firmly in the realm of it's okay like 90% of the time, but 10% of the time it will fuck up your recording. And if you can't monitor it actively, if you can't monitor the recording actively, then you're not going to know it's bad until it's too late.
Yeah.
So that's bad. The Teak was good. It just randomly died for no reason about 2 years in, which is not long enough for me. I bought a Motu M4 because the M4 and the M2 are like a $40, $50 price difference.
Is it there?
At the time, the problem was the M2 was out of stock when I needed it, and for a third party M2 seller on Sweetwater or any B&H or Amazon or any of the places that sell this stuff, it was going to be a small upgrade to get it first party for the M4. So I just bought the M4.
You're right. Actually, yes. Looking at Amazon right now, the prices are a bit higher than they were. Yeah, a few months ago.
The Motu stuff goes in and out of stock because it's a small company.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The M4 has 4 ports compared to the 2 on the 2, surprisingly.
Yeah,
but you're right. As of right now, they are not that far apart in price, but that's mostly because the M2 is a lot more expensive than it was.
Yeah, the M2 I think is usually like $160 is the MSRP or something like that.
150.
And usually like for the last year, it's been $200 every time I've looked.
These are $200 or more depending on the seller at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the M4 is that I have speakers and headphones. The speakers are on a different set of outputs, so I can set Spotify to only play through the speakers and have music come through the speakers when I want, which is nice.
So I think I am sold on that thing. It sounds great. Everything I've heard you and other people say about it is that like it kind of just works.
The drivers are really good. It's really stable. The ASIO interface is stable. Like I haven't had any problems with it. And also the trick, like the Focusrite ASIO drivers are good. The problem is the WME drivers are bad. So if you record in Audacity, you get all sorts of weird noise sometimes. If you record in Audition, it's fine.
Okay.
The next thing is the microphone.
Yes, the microphone is a bigger question for me because the spread in prices is pretty significant, and I don't know exactly what I need. First of all, I have no need for an M4, right? Like I'm sure an M2 with 2 inputs is more than enough.
Given how you like the reason I got the M4 ultimately is that it has 2 XLRs on the front. So if I wanted to record 2 people on one computer, I could.
Oh, am I not necessarily going to be using XLR for this? Like,
no, you'll use XLR for this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay.
So the XLR inputs on the front of these devices are typically those combo ones that are 1/4 inch / XLR.
Oh,
so you can plug a guitar in or something.
Oh, interesting. I never eyeballed it enough to realize that it would take both.
Yeah. And then on the back, you'll have either RCA line levels or 1/4 inch balanced usually.
Yeah, I think that the M4 has 2 1/4 inch on the back.
Yeah.
But I guess I probably am fine with the 2. Well, we'll see what I can get.
I used the M2 for years, or the Focusrite equivalent of the M2 for years with no problem.
Okay.
But I also have hooked up to the streaming PC of an 18 input digital mixer because I'm a lunatic. So the question is the microphone, and there's a big range on what you can get. I'm using an AT2035 right now, which is an old Audio Technica that I've had for like 10 years. I've been kind of eyeing a slightly better microphone, and the thing I'd been looking at was the Shure SM7 probably, or SM7B. Okay. Which is if the AT2035 is like the high end prosumer kind of like, hey, I want a hobbyist kind of microphone, I think the 7B is firmly in the middle of the, hey, I have a real studio and I want to record people talking space.
Yes, the difference in price is
like $300.
Pretty significant.
The Shure is like $400, I think, usually $400 or $500.
It is $400 right now on Amazon, and that Audio Technica is $150.
Yeah.
I don't know. You sound pretty good to me. You sound better than I do now, so I don't know. Maybe.
Well, so the problem with the Audio Technica is it picks up a lot of room. No. It's not super direct. It's not as directional as I would like.
Oh, that's not great.
The back of it is open, and you get. It's like if you're sitting here with for example, a keyboard or something that makes noise on the other side of the microphone because that's where your hands live, it picks up a lot of that.
Of course, you know what? When the primary product is audio based, perhaps spending the money on a good audio receptacle is justified.
That's kind of where, like, that's kind of why I was looking at upgrading, is because it would be nice to be able to type while we're recording and it not come through the recording.
Yeah, also pulling up the Shure makes me realize that I have seen this thing on a whole lot of like Twitch streams, and this is
the default.
Yes.
Hey, I'm making money on my Twitch stream. What should I buy?
The look of this microphone is very familiar to me now that I look at it.
Yeah, it is like, look, when you start talking to audio people, you realize that there's some famous microphones. This is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's reasons for that usually. I don't know. I'm not a microphone guy. I just talk to a bunch of people about what they have and what they like, and everybody who's gone from something like what I have to one of those has been happy with it. So
okay, that's good to know.
But you do need the driver to run it, and I can't remember. I think there's other stuff about, for example, if you have like condenser mics or dynamic mics, sometimes you have to put a powered amplifier in between that and the device. I think that the Shure is not one that requires that, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, it says right here, the SM7B does not require phantom power.
So is it a dynamic or is it a condenser?
And God, this is a whole paragraph. Let's see. Does not require phantom power, is not affected if phantom power is present on its mixer input. See, this is why I've never gotten into XLR stuff. It's just there's the power situation and all this stuff is so complicated. Note that some third-party external preamps commonly used with this mic do require phantom power to operate.
Yeah.
At least 60 decibels of gain is recommended to get that iconic warm and balanced tone most commonly associated with the SM7B.
So that puts you in cloud lifter territory.
What?
A cloud lifter is a device that uses phantom power. So phantom power is just electricity that comes from your XLR port and energizes the microphone, whatever's in the microphone. The cloud lifter is a device that does that and provides a gain boost.
Okay.
On between,
I have heard of that.
Yeah, like I use a cloud lifter for the headset mic because it's a dynamic mic that is,
you know what,
that requires the additional gain.
Cloud lifter is literally the first customers who viewed this item also viewed.
Yeah.
Item.
So like so basically what that does is increase the available range that you have to tweak the gain on the microphone.
Oh, okay.
So it gives you a wider range for what you can look for.
I mean, as with everything that has a learning curve, I'm sure once you get into it, it's not that arcane.
Well, so the thing that's nice about all of this is that once you set it, you never have to muck with it again, really. Like you figure it out once, and assuming you don't change the way your setup works or the way you're aimed or the way the distance you stay to the microphone, you never have to futz with it again.
Okay, that sounds very appealing.
Last stuff question, like the auto gain that we always have to deal with on Jitsi doesn't adjust. It can't touch the gain settings on these microphones.
Interesting. But can it try to adjust the gain on the audio interface? Or
if you're using the ASIO interface, it doesn't matter because the ASIO ignores all that stuff.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's good to hear. What was my last question before we move on? Is there some way on the M2 to... It doesn't have to be a literal mute switch, but is there a functional equivalent of a way to physically mute the mic?
So you want to put a mute button in your line someplace.
Is that easy to do? That's really appealing to me, is to be able to hit a thing that makes me know that the mic is muted, because sometimes you just have to cough or whatever. And
so you need an inline mute switch or cough button. They're usually like $50.
Okay.
And it sits between, or alternately you can do, like if you have a Stream Deck, you can program a button to do that on the software level as well.
Okay. Doing it in software always weirds me out. Like I like a physical break.
Knowing how you operate, you want a physical switch for that.
Well, but also, like you said, I mean, think about just in this conversation how many times like software or drivers have, or some application has messed with some sensitivity or output setting. Like, and also. The using the software to do this causes other problems. Right.
Yes.
It's just not a clean solution like a button is.
Buttons are nice. I wish that people made double like toggle buttons for this.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean, the Yeti has that. Like that would be fantastic, but I understand that just electrically we are in different territory here.
Yeah, there's a Rolls mic switch that's $50 that does exactly what you're looking for.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's momentary or click.
Okay, I would love a toggle rather than a hold. Does that sit in the XLR chain, or is that? I mean, it has
that
to,
sits
right?
in the XLR chain. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Boy,
so you'll have 2 or 3 things in your XLR cable between your microphone and the interface. The other thing with the XLR is it's much less susceptible to noise than the normal analog cables, but you are going to want to route it away from power as much as you can, or cross power at 90 degrees, power and data at 90 degrees.
Okay. This has gone from intimidating to intriguing in the course of this conversation.
I was going to say it's much less difficult than it seems like when you're starting. And like you have the benefit of having like a real business case for doing it. So you have actual budget to spend on it. Like if you want to start out streaming and you want to do this, my advice is, don't get into this, right? Like this is not the place to go with when you want to start out. If you're like, hey, I want to experiment with streaming. I'm not making any money at it. It's not something I'm doing. I'm just doing it for fun. That's firmly like buy a Blue Yeti or a Snowball territory, not spend $600 on a Shure and a Motu and a cloud lifter and a mic switch. Like you're in a higher price tier for this because of your job.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how I got a Yeti in the first place, was when we started doing Extra Life at home at Giant Bomb years ago. I needed a decent mic here, and that's what I got.
Yeah,
because it was once a year, right? Like we were not streaming or recording from home like at all. So it was like, this is fine for once a year.
But now you're doing it every day, and there's a real benefit to having it just set up so you can so it doesn't take you 20 minutes to set up every morning and stuff like that.
Yep.
Also, the duty cycle on XLR cables is nearly infinite. So it's less of a problem.
Okay. Well, actually, I guess I could unplug and plug it if I really.
I would still unplug. I would unplug on the interface end, not the microphone end, or ideally on 2 cables in between, like somewhere in the in between.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Should we talk about ARM and Nvidia?
We can briefly. I don't know that I have a ton of an insight to offer other than the Nvidia. We did a whole episode about when Nvidia announced its intent to acquire ARM, and that deal has actually collapsed as of this week.
Yep.
Which I feel like you don't see happen very often. It fell apart in Europe, right? Or in the UK? Not here.
No, there was pressure on all sides. So the FTC sued to block it.
Oh,
the UK didn't want it to happen because it seems like ARM is their only silicon, is it like their biggest silicon conductor company.
Okay. I just assumed this was in the EU because the regulatory action still exists over there. Like, I very cynically just assumed that no acquisition or merger will ever be blocked in this country again, but maybe I was wrong.
So the big thing was the people who use ARM currently that aren't Nvidia didn't like this because they didn't want ARM, because ARM just sells technology and doesn't sell chips and doesn't make their own chips. It means that everybody operates on the same schedule, and like Qualcomm and Nvidia and Apple and all the other places that build ARM chips get them at the same time. I assume Qualcomm felt like, and Apple felt like, if Nvidia owns ARM, they're going to get first dibs on the good stuff, and they didn't want that to happen. The FTC and Britain's Competition and Markets Authority both sued or both objected to the thing, and the EU had an investigation last year and a full antitrust probe in October. And also there was stuff happening in China with ARM China around an executive ouster and drama there. And seemingly maybe China's regulatory authority also objected. So Nvidia basically said, hey, we're not going to do this, and wash their hands of the $1.25 billion they spent trying to get this going.
Oh, they can afford it.
Must be nice. Yeah.
Nvidia's doing pretty well. Like, their stock took like almost no hit, right, on this. Like, that.
I don't believe they took a hit related to this. They also have had, like, they own 80+% of the GPU market across data centers and consumers. So it's less of a, like, this was a future looking thing, and they could afford to swing and miss on it. It seems like.
Yeah. You know what's, did you see, I can't remember which part of Digital Foundry put this up. I don't know if it was DF Retro or what category this fell into. The John over there put up a retrospective on the original GeForce 256.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
SDR.
Yeah.
Which I bought one of. Like, I loved that. Was a fantastic video. Like, people should go watch that.
That was the first video card I reviewed at Maximum PC.
Really?
Yeah.
It was probably the first video card I truly like fetishized or obsessed over wanting once it was announced. But anyway, like, it just made me think back to, like, that was probably the actual turning point where Nvidia went from like just one of the umpteen video card makers all competing for the same slice of market to like, wow, they're doing interesting stuff nobody else is doing in this space, right? Like, that was, I mean, it was literally the genesis of the GeForce brand, which has persisted for over 2 decades at this point. But also it was like, you know, they moved R&D forward on that card in a way that had not really happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, up until that point, video cards were just accelerating texturing and triangle generation, and that was pretty much it. And it was a big. It was the last card I reviewed at ours, the first card I reviewed at Maximum PC, which was funny.
It came up. We talked about it on the Discord. I believe that was when they started pushing the term GPU.
That was when they and at the time we all kind of thought it was kind of bullshit, and then we looked at what because. The other thing to remember is at that point, the dev cycle on a game was 18 months to 2 years for something that was pretty long.
Right.
So we didn't see games that used the GeForce stuff for a fairly long time after the GeForce came out. We saw tech demos and like 3D Mark and stuff like that, or bench. It wasn't even 3D Mark at that point yet, I don't think. But it wasn't until later that you saw the impact. Like, it wasn't really until like the GeForce 2 MX kind of mid-range cards shipped, and then the GeForce 3 came out, and that's when we actually saw stuff that launched around the same time,
right? With
the like DX7 and triangle setup and hardware transform and lighting and stuff like that,
right? Yeah, like moving the geometry setup off the CPU onto the graphics card. I feel like in retrospect, like, that is a pretty good justification for actually saying that a graphics processing unit is an appropriate term.
But at the time, you didn't know whether anybody was actually going to use it or not.
Sure.
It was still, that stuff was all early enough that you never knew. Like,
that's fair.
People would come out with features that sounded great on paper, and then nobody would implement them, and you were like,
I guess you didn't know if it was just going to be another PhysX.
Well, PhysX.
I mean, I know PhysX got integrated into the GPUs eventually. Maybe that's a bad example, but I understand what you're talking about. Like there were a lot of like questionable hardware acceleration technologies happening at that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we don't remember because like 2 games shipped with it and it didn't do anything. So
like there were like gamer Ethernet cards shipping and stuff like that.
Look, the gamer Ethernet cards are still a problem. If you buy a gaming laptop, odds are it has a fucking terrible killer network card in it that you have to pop out and replace with something from Intel or somebody else.
Yeah.
Like the Power VR stuff is a good example because they did the front to back tile rendering. And that like seemed like a really good, much more efficient way to do the rendering, except for everybody would have to rewrite their graphics pipelines to use it. And so it didn't do anything until people started putting it in mobile and the APIs advanced enough that it just handled the hard part for you.
Right.
So yeah, like but it was a transformative, like the other secret of that card. And I didn't watch the whole video, so John may have gotten into this, but the other secret of that card was it was just stupid. It was the first thing I used that was faster than a Voodoo 2.
Oh yeah.
In OpenGL and like the 3D games I was playing every day, like Quake 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I had been on a TNT prior to that. I had already ended up on an Nvidia card and was already very excited about the prospect of only having one graphics card in your machine. This I was talking to some people in the Discord when we were discussing that video who were not around in the Voodoo days and did not understand how many awful compromises you were making there. Like, yeah, you had to buy a separate 2D card and a 3D card.
Well, and that 3D, that external 2D, like the fact that the 2D signal went through the 3D card added a shitload of noise and made your entire desktop look mushy.
That was the one that blew their mind was, yes, you had to run the nice, clean, pristine 2D signal out of your nice Matrox Millennium through this shitty, noisy pass through on the Voodoo, and then yes, your desktop looked like garbage.
See, like I was always in the realm of I didn't care because I had cheap monitors, so I was running 2 Voodoo 2s in SLI, I think at that point probably.
Okay. So my last CRT computer monitor, which is still in my parents' basement, which is going to be paired with a Mister at some point, is a 21-inch Trinitron SGI branded, like Silicon Graphics surplus. It was like I got it on eBay for some insanely cheap price, and it was obviously it was brand new in box. It was clearly like SGI was faltering and they were clearing out stock. So it's like it's full on got the Jurassic Park era original SGI logo on it. Like I love that thing to death. But so that thing has BNC connections on it. It's like that's how nice that monitor was.
A good ass monitor right there.
So like I will never get rid of that monitor. But so I had a nice one, so that's why I wanted.
I remain sad desktop. That when I wanted rid of the 24-inch, 118-pound or whatever Sony Trinitron widescreen, that I just took it back in the lab and put it in the lab at Maximum PC instead of keeping it for myself.
Was that the FDM 900?
I can't remember. It had the 2 lines and it was gorgeous. It was like 1600 by 900 or 2400 by. It was a 16 by 9 ratio.
Dude, that's the one. Was it the 1440p Sony?
That seems it might have been.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's the one. I mean, I know we've talked about this.
I used it for testing video cards for years.
That's the one that a new in-box one was found recently and sold for $30,000 on eBay.
That seems right. Yeah. It was a lovely monitor.
Yes,
it was flat. It was a flat, but it was literally it was a problem moving it because it took 2 people to lift it.
I believe it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we won't belabor this, but the Nvidia ARM news also, as every ARM headline does, has got me thinking about RISC-V again, which is the open source RISC instruction set developed at UC Berkeley that is license free, royalty free as a competitor to ARM. Like we don't need to get into it now because I don't think either of us really understands it well enough. But I do wonder.
I think there's an episode there.
That might be. I don't know if that's. I'm really torn on whether that's like a FOSSPod topic. I mean, granted, we're still kind of figuring out the FOSSPod as we go, but that is open source hardware. That is like anybody can design a CPU based on this instruction set that kind of fills the same role as ARM.
I think we can figure it out as we go
without the royalties. I'm fascinated by that whole framework.
I'm really skeptical of
we'll see. I don't know.
Open source hardware at that scale. It's hard to do instruction sets and chips.
The thing that really caught my eye was I was on Western Digital's site the other day, and like they had a little promo unit on the page that was like, read about Western Digital's RISC-V strategy. And I clicked through, and they're like, from what I understood, they appear to be implementing drive controllers on the drives in RISC-V now, like just as little, they're little bespoke chips that go on the circuit board on a hard drive. Like,
I mean, there's always been drive control. Like the drive controllers in the drive are much smarter now than they were.
No, I know that. That's what I'm saying. Now they are using this open source instruction set to do that, and like seeing a vendor of that size talking about using it in their products seemed pretty cool. I want to follow up on it. Like apparently Intel is looking at it pretty hard. I
mean, I wonder if there's a royalty. I assume there's no royalty structure since it's open source. So that's Western Digital's motive right there, right?
That's my understanding. And again, I might be missing something there, but it is a topic of study for me. I'm really curious about it.
Do we want to talk about your NAS real quick, or should we save this for FOSSPod because that's coming?
This might be a little too esoteric and me for that show. I'm not sure.
What are you doing? What have you done, Brad?
It's in extreme pieces right now. I don't know if I bought new hard drives. I'm going to do my drives are 4 years old. They've been making some weird noises and like taking longer for the heads to unpark and access data in a way that is starting to unnerve me. So I'm just going to go ahead and get out in front of any potential drive failures and just like replace the whole pool.
Once you get to that point, once the hard drives start making noise, you should assume they're already dead.
Yes. And so also all the smart data, granted, smart is a weird thing. We should like do more on,
that is a good episode idea too. I'm going to put that down at the end of these notes.
All of these smart diagnostics read either pre-fail or old age at this point. Literally all of them.
Yeah, it's time.
Some of the reading I've done about smart makes it sound like every vendor is different about how they report smart stuff and that you can't necessarily read too much into those things. But
look, once I get the pre-fail error on a drive, it is to be replaced as soon as possible.
Yes, so that's where I'm at. There are enough weird noises and little laggy situations that it's just like, you know what, I'm just not going to risk this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've still got the drives though. I've hooked up I'll try to condense this. I need to hook up 10 hard drives to this micro ATX board with
Why
like 550.
Do you need to hook up 10 hard drives?
So. You burn in your hard drives?
No.
Okay, I'm torn right now.
Why would you burn in your hard drives?
Some people in the networking in the NAS channel on our Discord are all for it.
That's absolute madness.
There's a lot of people like to run a utility called Bad Blocks. It's a Unix. It's like a Linux based.
Is the point to find the early failures before you have data on the drives?
Well, yeah, it just tests the whole disk. It just tests the entirety of the disk for any bad.
How long does it take?
That's indeterminate. It's definitely going to be a long, probably multi-day process, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's a no for me, dog. Yeah, you have redundancy on the array on the ZFS array.
I'm good. My original pool can lose one drive, and I've also got a full backup externally. Like that's not a problem.
Yeah,
it's more that I was just thinking about like running Bad Blocks on all the new drives, and still having the old pool hooked up at the same time, so I can keep using the NAS. But then that's like. Having to get real creative with the power cables from the PSU and utilizing almost every SATA port and port on the SAS card in this entire machine. And there's no room in the case for all this stuff, so it's like drives stacked up on top of the case.
The solution to the problem that doesn't exist is worse than the problem that doesn't exist.
You're probably right. You're probably right. But like that's the effect of people talking about this stuff is it introduces enough uncertainty that you're like, maybe I should do this. There are advocates for this strategy on our Discord. I will say that.
Look, this is an Occam's razor situation for me. My failure rate on new drives over the course of the last 20 years is like 0%, right?
Yes, but have you stressed those drives enough to say for sure?
Well, resilvering the new ZFS array onto a new drive is going to hit them pretty hard enough to find early errors. Is my theory.
So that's part of this rebuild. Is I think I am moving to striped mirrors rather than a RAID Z.
Well, okay, same uptake. Like you're copying a shitload of data across them, though.
That's one of the advantages of mirrors is the rebuild is dramatically less disk work than rebuilding from parity is. Anyway, we don't need to get into it.
Yeah, This is firmly in the realm of stuff that okay. So here's the real answer is if you discover a failure in the first 3 months, you have the old array still available. You can plug it in and pull any data that's lost off of that. Right. for the most part.
Yes.
So like, what's, I guess the question is, what's the potential downside if something goes catastrophically wrong? And it seems like it's really low. So then why go through the exercise of solving this problem that doesn't exist?
It's pretty low. It's pretty low. It's, but like, I mean, it is peace of mind, but also you have to ask yourself, is this just reliability theater?
Yes.
Like maybe.
I think that's where we're at.
Maybe.
That's where my vote lies.
Regardless of whether I run bad blocks or not, I still need all the 10 drives hooked up so I can replicate the data sets from the old pool over to the new one. So I still am going to have this Frankenstein's NAS sitting next to me with drives coming out of it all over for at least the...
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that's probably like a 12 to 16 hour transfer to replicate the whole thing over. If I had to guess.
Probably.
Maybe less. Maybe less.
I don't know. How many terabytes? Like 12?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a buttload of data, Brad.
Yeah. My NAS is a gigantic mess right now. I'm looking forward to getting it put back together.
Speaking of ill-advised experiments with computing, I saw a PC Gamer article the other day about a utility that lets you synchronize all of the RGB nonsense on your computer with one interface instead of having to like match the colors across the motherboard interface and the Corsair thing. And
God damn it.
What?
Okay, next topic. So there's this Newegg thing. I'm sorry. Okay. We can continue.
What? I have aesthetics. I like my stuff to be colored full and shiny. Makes me happy.
When you wrote signal RGB versus RGB sync in this doc as a topic to talk about, I was like, oh, is this like an HDR thing? Like he's trying to synchronize the color space in Windows on his desktops, like across monitors? Like that sounds worth talking about. I didn't realize what kind of RGB we were talking about.
I am synchronizing the RGB color space across multiple devices.
Okay, now it's my turn to get mad at you.
Look. Okay, so I have this case. It has it has two giant glass windows and it has cool multicolored fans in it. Mm-hmm. And then it has a light strip inside the case. Mm-hmm. I have a all-in-one water cooler with lights on that. I have memory with lights on that just because when I had to buy memory last year, that was the only memory that was in stock.
Wait, when did you go water cooling?
I've been water cooling for 10 years at this point.
Consistently? Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I always do the all-in-ones because for a long time it was quiet. And now that there's quieter air coolers, right. I still had the all-in-one from the last PC. So I just moved to the new one. But anyway, so there's mouse and keyboard. There's fans and light strip attached to the case. There's the all-in-one water cooler. There's the memory. There's the video card because all of the Founders Edition video cards have RGB addressable lights.
I think I glossed over the part where you have RGB memory.
Okay, so when my memory died last year and I had to buy new memory, there was hard to buy chips, and the only thing that was available at a reasonable price was the stuff with the sick LEDs on it.
Okay, acceptable.
Yeah. So, but the problem is the motherboard had lights too, because it's just like the price range, the SKU that I was in happened to have lights on it. So 5 different vendors, 5 different applications. If you want everything to be the same color, it's a huge pain in the ass.
Okay. So what we are looking at here is essentially the home assistant of PC RGB. They're just unifying every vendor's standards into one umbrella.
Well, so there's 2 approaches to this is what I've learned. So I saw a PC Gamer article the other day about RGB sync, which basically means first you install all of the vendor applications, and then this talks to their individual APIs and controls their lights through them. I found that to not work particularly well. And it's just a Band-Aid for the larger problem, which is I don't want to have 18 different applications controlling this stuff on my computer. Yeah, like janky layers of abstraction on a thing like this never seems like a good idea. It's not what you're looking for. There's this thing called Signal RGB. RGB. Okay. Did I put a P here? I think it's RGB. P.
I'm guessing
it's B. It's B. I typoed.
Okay.
Signal RGB that talks directly to the hardware. So they've just reverse engineered the back end stuff. And it means that I turned off IQ and the Gigabyte thing and the NZXT thing and the Logitech thing. And instead it just detects everything. That's cool. Like I'm not a huge fan of PC RGB, but what you were describing is very cool. So here's the coolest part is you can they let you map the placement of the devices. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can physically map what it looks like. Okay.
Now I'm getting a little excited. This sounds kind of cool.
Okay, so look at this. So this
wow.
is like the rainbow thing. It's basically what Brad is seeing is a bunch of squares on a 2D plane, and each of the squares is a device. So like this is my keyboard, this is my mouse and mouse pad, this is the LED strip in the computer, this is the memory sticks, this is the motherboard. This is the fans, this is the motherboard. So when you look at my desk from 5 feet away, which nobody ever does except for me, and it makes me happy, then I have like a pattern that moves from one side of the desk to the other side of the desk, and it works with almost everything in the computer right now. I don't think it works with the monitor, but I don't have the backlight on the monitor, so it doesn't matter.
I am going to say this is an incredibly cool solution for a problem that I think sucks, but the solution is rad as hell. Like looking at like it was almost like a CAD program for the layout of your desktop with
and like
definable colors cycling across it like that. That's very cool.
You can move the individual devices around so that like the physical orientation and the light orientation lines up perfectly. So you get like a nice rippling rainbow wave through the case as it's doing its render.
That's pretty neat.
It has a monthly charge associated with it, but the free version seems to do everything that I want to do. So here we are.
Sorry,
and I have like 5 less TSRs running on the computer.
Hey,
so.
that's wait a minute. Hang on.
Terminate and stay resident programs.
Terminate and stay resident?
Yes, of course.
I don't think I've heard that. Actually, I take that back because I've been dinking around with so much DOS stuff. I think I saw a reference to a TSR a couple days ago. But prior to that, it's been like 20 years since I've heard the term TSR.
Tray applications. So, the other cool thing you can do is you can have it watch your monitor, and it will synchronize the lights with what's going on the screen.
Wow. Okay.
Or. All right. And it'll hook up to Hue and other like outside lights too. So you can make the whole room, like I could put back splash lighting on the back of the monitors to splash the walls and make everything match what's going on the screen at any given time, which seems like it would be really cool, but I don't know if I'm going to go that far.
Sorry, which one was the cool one you're sticking with and which one's the not great one?
Signal RGB is the one that I like.
Okay. That's RGB, the one you're talking about with the layout and everything.
Yeah. RGB sync is the one that's it seems good. I think it might have Windows 11 problems is my guess. It seems like it's a little janky because of Windows 11 stuff.
Yeah. I mean, wrappers for anything are always a little questionable. Like anytime you're having to intercept something from one thing.
Yeah.
Translate it to something else is a point of failure.
And it does game integrations too. So like it'll do like the cool, like it basically speaks the different languages that Razer and Logitech and all those different APIs use so that like you can get the Terraria interface. I think that requires the paid plan, which I'm less interested in for this type of product.
I am now sitting here looking at Signal RGB just because I think it's cool, even though I don't own or want to own any RGB products.
It's time, Brad. Think of how nice all the light would be on that white wall behind your desk. It would look so cool.
Oh, I've got a light strip.
It would look like hackers, man.
Look, the wall is the one place that I want color. I've got a light strip on the back of my desk to light up the wall in a cool way.
Perfect.
But
I'm so to know, just to be clear, this costs $36 a year if you pay for their fancy stuff, which I'm like I said, less interested in.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
So yeah, that's it. That's cool. What I got.
All right. Well, I was going to
say,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But this was really awkward. But I was going to say this all started because the LED under the B on my keyboard has gotten like it's weak on blue now.
I see.
It's been off. Like my default was a nice pleasant red so that I don't fuck up my night vision when I'm in here. And anyway, I had to adjust color schemes to accommodate this stuck RGB LED, and I'm kind of looking at it thinking, man, I could probably desolder that and put another one on, but I don't know if I want to get into that. Like, I don't know if that's a lifestyle I'm comfortable with.
This is a level of detail obsession and perfectionism that I can get behind. I strongly encourage you.
It's either that or just replace the keyboard, and it's the stupidest reason ever to replace a keyboard. So,
I get it.
Yeah. It made me. Like I almost went to the closet and pulled out another keyboard. It made me so crazy when it happened. When I realized what was happening, I was like, "This is not okay with me." Maybe I'll take an LGB. Maybe I'll take an LED off of another keyboard and replace it. That might be the way to do. Anyway,
now you're talking.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, what a heady and pleasant bouquet of aromas we have
I mean, we had a little body horror, we had a little NAS, we had a little XLR.
Mm-hmm.
I got to yell at you for thinking about taking a mission critical piece of hardware and replacing a USB.
I was not serious about that.
I like, you better not have been serious about that.
Look, here's a little podcast secret for you. Sometimes you embellish things a little bit for
what?
Entertainment value.
What?
But there's always a kernel of truth at the center.
Yeah. I know what the kernel of truth at the center of that nugget was.
We assembled a nice floral potpourri, and I didn't even talk about my MacBook notch.
How are you handling that, by the way?
I installed Top Notch, and it's kind of okay. It's fine. I don't really. I mean, for the record, the menu bar in macOS should be white or off-white gray. Like that is the canonical color. Or
you gotta stop worrying and learn to love the notch, man.
For the that's what the MacBook menu bar should be, but instead I've used Top Notch to turn the entire menu bar black.
Yeah,
so you just can't see the notch.
Just look at that, embrace it, love the notch.
Look, as long as I can't see it, I'm able to tolerate it. It was purely an aesthetic consideration. I just don't want to see it. And now that whole bar at the top is a nice uniform black.
Don't you like the edge screen though?
And I can live with it. It's fine. It's not bad.
Okay.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I haven't had a ton of time to set that machine up yet, so I haven't used it a lot. But
you know what else is pretty good?
What's that?
Our patrons.
Yeah, they are.
As always, Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod is 100% listener supported. We really appreciate everybody who contributes to the Patreon every month and hangs out in the Discord and is part of the burgeoning Tech Pod community.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to find out how to join, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. And for as little as $2 a month, you will get access to the Tech Pod, the fabulous Tech Pod Discord, full of beautiful nerds talking about stuff like Brad's XLR microphone. And I don't know, last night there was a really extended conversation about about Tumblr that was fascinating because I never engaged with Tumblr really, aside from like meme blogs. And there's a lot there, it turns out. Who knew?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great community full of good people, and we would love to have you there. So it's patreon.com/techpod. Brad, this is the part of the show where we thank our executive producer tier patrons.
Thank you, executive producers, for not firing us.
Yes, thank you, executive producers, for not firing us. Thanks to Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, Octothorpe Bunny Crimes. It's spelled out now, by the way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is that hang on, is this some kind of Patreonception where there's now a dialogue between us and one of our patrons via their username?
Look, I'm starting. I like the Octothorpe so much. I'm starting to seed it as a next potential pet name.
Ooh,
Octothorpe would be a good corgi name, I think.
Yeah, it's a cool word. I had never heard it before. I never heard the pound sign referred to that way, and it's a neat. There's something about it. There's a nice.
It has a cadence.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Thorpe as what you'd actually call the dog.
I'd started to say, would you call them Octo? But Thorpe.
Thorpe. You got to do. Octo is not the right kind of syllables for dogs to hear, right?
No. Thorpe. I mean,
Thorpe.
Corgi named Thorpe is probably wearing glasses, reading glasses, and that dog is an old man right out of the gate.
Yeah, wearing a cardigan, right? It's a cardigan wearing a cardigan. The other thing is you could call it Thor, I think, probably.
Thor. Okay.
Thor is a good corgi. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks to Octothorpe Bunny Crimes. Thanks to Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
We do.
And thanks to everybody who's a patron or a listener. We appreciate all of you all. And whether you are part of the Patreon or not, we love it when people tell their friends about the show because it's how people find out about the show, it turns out.
Spread the word.
And if you haven't listened to the first episode of the Foss Pod, you should do that too, because we talked to Jim Bailey at length, the maker of OBS, the Open Broadcaster Software.
Yes,
system.
Open Broadcaster Software.
Open Broadcaster Software.
Open Broadcaster Software. I'm telling you, Columbia Broadcasting System has poisoned our minds.
They really have. I didn't even work for them ever.
A century of that acronym.
I didn't realize that C was for Columbia. I thought it was for Central.
No. I don't even know which Columbia are we even talking about here?
It's probably the one that Sony owns now, right?
Yes. The movie studio? Is that where it came from? Oh, I guess you're right.
Columbia Pictures, probably Columbia Radio. It's probably all.
Oh, yeah, that would make perfect sense.
Probably all spun off of RKO or something ridiculous 50 years ago. Anyway, that'll do it for us this week.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
What a lovely, well, this is a good conversation, Brad. We should do this more often.
I would love to hear feedback from people. Like, we are definitely pretty married to the single topic episode format, or have been mostly so far, but like if people like these slightly ramblier grab bag episodes,
yeah, let us know one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't know that we should do this like every single month necessarily, but I enjoy these bouncy hopping from topic to topic.
Yeah, like I would never have done a whole episode on stupid RGB lights in my computer, but it was fun to talk about it. Yeah. And like same thing for your hard drives and your NAS and your Don Quixote like quest to plug 10 computers into 10 drives into that computer.
Or even like the XLR stuff, like that was good actionable information, but I don't know that we could have stretched a whole episode out of that. But
yeah.
Anyway, like, hey, let us know what you like.
Yeah, feedback. We love feedback. Any way you have it. You can post it to the Discord, or you can send us an email to techpod@content.town. See y'all next week. Bye, everybody. Don't stop recording. Don't stop recording.
Oh, God.
Podcast crimes.